Yo everyone. Today I just got my video that's detailing some of the biggest traps that I think there is in Supercoach this season. So basically all these guys have pretty high percent ownership and I just think they're not going to be worthwhile picks, at least at this point in the preseason. So with the first pick here I've got coming in as James Sicily. So obviously as you can see here, really high percent ownership, 35%. And I think he's really not going to be what people expect him to be. Firstly, of course, coming off that injury. But I think even if you look at what happened to Sam Doherty as that distributor role in 2020 when he came back, Carlton just had out of necessity had to develop more players to play that distributor role when Sam Doherty wasn't there. And I think you're seeing that happen with James Sicily as well, with guys like Chankwas Jath, Jarman Impey, Jack Scrimshaw, Lockie Bramble, and a few other guys that have had to develop last year to play that distributing role in James Sicily's absence. And as a result, Sicily is not going to have as much opportunity to get as many touches and kicks and marks, basically, as he was playing in 2019, when those guys weren't as good and didn't have as much opportunity and hadn't developed as much. So now that that has happened, it probably leaves you in question how much opportunity is there for him to score. Realistically, I don't really see him scoring above probably 95, 96. And even though he's pretty a lot of value at 448k as a premium defender spot, you probably want a guy that's going above about 100ish. So I think he's well below that class, and so he's probably not really a worthwhile selection. For at least a starting spot. And so coming in number 5 now, we got Tyrone Thomas. So basically, he only averaged 18 touches a game last year, and I feel like he's more of an impact player rather than that accumulator style that you really need for a good Supercoach premium option. You realistically need him to score probably, or to get probably 22, 23 touches a game to be that forward premium spot that scores maybe 95 plus points per game, probably even really 97, 98 at least per game. And so I don't really see him being able to up this 84-point average to anything more than probably like 92, 93, even if he did get a few more touches. And keep in mind, he's only a fourth-year player this year. You look at guys that managed to score even 100 in their fourth year last year. Only guys Sam Walsh and Andrew Brayshaw, who basically played 100% midfield time when they were on the ground. And Tyrone, like you look at North Melbourne's midfield, they got still Greenwood, Simkin, Davis Uniacke, Anderson if he's available, and still guys like Tom Powell, Will Phillips in there as well. They're going to get a lot of midfield time. Like Thomas isn't really going to get any more than probably like 40-50% midfield time really. So I wouldn't get buoyed by some of his high scores last year. I think they're probably outliers more than anything. And if he is to score more than 96, 97 points per game, he's probably going to have to kick a goal and a half per game, which I don't really see him being able to do last year or this year if he in his role right now. Now we got a number 4, Isaac Heaney. So obviously he has been rumoured to play more inside midfield time, which I think he actually will. But I think the main issue with him is I don't really see his ability to score at a high enough level for him to be a forward premium. He obviously only scored the 83.5 last year. He has got seasons where he scored 94 in 2020 and 2019, and 97 in 2017 and 2018. But I think realistically that's probably his peak. I don't really see his ability to break 100. I don't think he's a good enough accumulator to do so. I think he is more of that impact player that's going to be able to score a goal and a half to a goal and a half to 2 goals a game, and that's how he's going to get the bulk of his points to elevate his scoring rather than through disposals. So even though they got guys like Josh Kennedy, they're transitioning out of the midfield. Callum Mills is injured for a bit. I still don't think Isaac Heaney is going to be a good enough selection to average good enough forward premium numbers. So I think he's, as a mid-price pick, the value seems pretty appealing. But I just think his obviously durability concerns as well, despite playing 20 games last year. He's probably just not durable enough to withstand a whole season. Number 3, we got Zac Butters. So another one of these forward mid-price options that people want to turn into a premium. For him as well, I don't think there's going to be just the midfield opportunity. You got already Wines, Boak, Amon and Drew basically as their four mainstay midfielders in there. Plus guys like Rosie, Mead might play as well. So if Zac Butters does play, he's probably again going to play that around 50 to 60% time the half forward line, and the rest potentially in the midfield or even deeper forward. So I think what we saw last year at the start of the season was probably more of a flash in the pan than anything. I think if he did keep playing out the full season and he didn't get injured, I think we probably would have saw his average be more around that 85 to 90 mark rather than anything above 95. So I think, and he only averaged last year after he came back from injury 67. I think people try to forget that a bit to sell themselves on this pick. Like 67, obviously not very good for a forward premium option. And even though some of that could be, a lot of that probably could be put down to his injury, coming back from it and getting back into game shape form. But still, I mean, do you want him to improve 30 to 35 points basically from that to this year, to average around that 100 mark? Like, I mean, I don't really think that's probably going to happen. And yeah, I think really he's a bit of a folly, to be honest. And so, yeah, at number 2, we've got Lockie Whitfield. So, obviously, one of the highest percent ownership players in the game at 44%. I think with him, basically, obviously, the obvious durability concerns, a lot of conversation around that already. But I think for him, I think the thing that people are discarding more than anything is his scoring has dropped off a lot from what we saw. He averaged 111 in 2020, and he was down to 92.3 this season. Last season. Actually, 111 was in 2019. But I think even if you take out the one game where he got a concussion and was subbed out in the second quarter, he only averaged 96 for the year. If you put that 96 in to all the averages of the defenders last year, he would have come 13th. So when you're trying to pick a defender that's top 6 or top 8, and he comes 13th in average, when you take out the concussion game, I mean, it seems like a fairly ridiculous selection at that point. Despite being a lot of value at 502k, again, I think he's probably exiting his prime. Even though he's only 27, sounds fairly ridiculous, but I'm not sure whether it's necessarily due to the vast amount of distances he runs per game, or that injury history is accumulating to the point where, yeah, his body is just deteriorating a little bit too much, and we're probably not going to see him average more than 100 or even 98 this season. So I think even though he's a lot of value, he's just not worth it, to be honest, in the defender's top 6 position. And with the number 1 spot I've got for the traps this season, I've got Lockie Neal. So I think obviously 48% ownership is massive. I think people are discounting the fact a lot that he could not even average 100 last season. Now, I know he did have some injury-affected games and stuff, but he did also have Brisbane's highest percent centre bounce attendance last season. So when you account for that fact and the fact that they got guys like Rayner, Jared Berry, Zach Bailey, Hugh McCluggage all going to be trying to get more midfield time, Lockie Neal is going to have to forfeit some of his centre bounce attendances, almost guaranteed. And so he's getting less midfield time, and he couldn't even average 100 last year with his midfield time that he had. I think it all spells for disaster, to be honest. I think he's probably going to average somewhere between maybe 105, 110. He'd be even pushing it to go about 115, I reckon. So as a premium midfield selection, when you want guys that are going 115, 120, he serves next to no value, basically, and next to no potential to be a long-term viable selection for this season. Also with Neal, I think people are just betting on that comeback story a bit too much. I think we saw the same thing. A lot happened with Paddy Cripps last year. Obviously, he had that really down year in 2020, and a lot of people thought he would make a comeback in 2021 last year, and he didn't. His scoring even went further down, and I think you see that a fair bit that happens in the SuperCoach community. People think that just because someone has a down season, they're going to come right back up to maybe not necessarily the same standard, but just a tad below that from what they were in their prime years, or at least in their best years. So I think you got to try to not get tricked by that and just realize maybe this is the Lockie Neal that we're going to see from now on, or at least we'll see a little bit better than he was last year, instead of that Brownlow medal type season, or even really remotely close to that for this season. But yeah, that's the video. Thanks for watching. I'd be interested to know if you guys have any contrasting thoughts to mine, and yeah, basically why. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah.